Hi, beautiful ladies. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Alana Palm, Christian trauma release and mind renewal specialist, and I help Christian women overcome overwhelm, fear, frustration, and trauma from a Christ-centered perspective. If this interests you, please continue watching. Today I have a really fun topic, so I'm excited to talk to you about this powerful topic this morning, right? I think so many of you, when I put this out there, were really interested in it because we often struggle with this very thing, right? How do we let go? How do we surrender? How do we actually just live life from this place of trusting God's spirit and trusting Him completely, His character, His goodness, His promises? So today we're going to talk about the one thing that you get to do in order to surrender and let go. You wonder why, oh, why can't I be more like Him? Why can't I have His joy and His peace? Why am I so angry? Why do I have so much resentment inside? Why am I afraid? Why am I always worrying? And I know firsthand what that's like. It's crazy making, right? And this feeling of not enough just eats away at you. And you go to church on Sunday and you hear about being a better Christian and about people in the Bible who, were redeemed by God and their names were changed. And you see people living with the joy and the peace of the Lord. And you think, why not me? Why can't I have that? And of course, probably on the outside, if you're anything like I used to be, you pretend everything's okay, right? And when people ask you how you are, you don't really want to tell them. You don't want to be that person who's being too much or just telling a sob story. And maybe you've told people your story before and how you're struggling, and they just say, "Oh, go and pray, and just change your mindset," right? But it's not that easy, right? And it gives you maybe a bit of anxiety when it comes down to sharing the truth about what's going on. And plus, maybe you're the woman who, on the outside, things look great, right? There are lots of people who see your life and think, oh, she's so blessed. But deep down inside, there's something that's not connecting, right? I mean, that your life isn't terrible. You see your blessings, but at the same time, you're struggling with the joy and the peace of the Lord, right? And the thing is, a lot of people think that our joy and our peace is based on our circumstances, how good our life is, right? If our life looks good on the outside, then somehow we should be joyful and peaceful. But that's not actually the case. And really, that inner joy and peace are all about your ability to let go of what you have. So hear me out for a second. Everyone in the Bible who was healed, and everyone that I know in this lifetime, they have had this element of surrender, right? And they realized they couldn't do it in their own strength, and they surrendered to God, and they surrendered to really open that door. You know how it says, Jesus knocks, right? He stands at the door and knocks, but we have to be the one who opens the door. So they let go and they let God, and that's really hard because sometimes people don't fully trust God. They don't fully understand God. They don't know what's going to happen next. I know when I became a Christian, I was terrified to give my life over to Christ because I thought, oh my goodness, what is He going to do with my life? Like, when I can control my life, things are decent, until one day I couldn't control it and things just happened around me that I had no control over. And I realized that it was kind of like this false belief that I had. And I'm guessing you might be a woman who likes control. So if you like having control, just put a yes. If you're anything like me, I like things to be wrapped up in a neat little package with a bow on top. And I know life isn't always like that, but I have historically liked things like that. And I still get to lay that down at the foot of the cross all the time, right? And it gets frustrating because when we feel like we're losing control, we hold on tighter, and we feel tightness in our muscles. We feel tightness in our whole self, and we feel those negative emotions, right? And when we try to control things, it's based in fear, right? We're afraid of losing something. We're afraid of being rejected, or we're afraid of actually dying, right? We're so afraid we're going to be hurt, rejected, abandoned, let go of, and nothing's going to catch us. So we want to control things. And we think if we can make everything work together in a certain way, we'll actually be safe. And this is your subconscious. So when we talk about just change your mindset, our subconscious beliefs are usually so old, like they've been around for so many decades, that we don't actually know how to change them, because most of our programming actually happens before we're a teenager. So anything that happened in your life that you came to believe before you were a teenager, if it was negative about you, there's probably a lot of remnants still if you're not experiencing God's joy and peace. But they're buried inside you like this treasure box, but it's like covered with ivy. It's not even a treasure box. I would say it's just like this box, like this brown box, kind of covered in ivy and weeds, and inside is all of this stuff that's being held on to, but there's this big padlock on it. And to actually get it out requires some work, right? Or else we just keep living this way, right? Some of us aren't that desperate. We're okay. We're like, I want to control things. I'm good. My life's okay. It's not really that big of a deal if I get mad at people sometimes, or I'm frustrated, or I don't have abundant joy and peace. It's not that big of a deal. I certainly don't want to do the work to do what needs to be done to overcome it, because that's too hard. I want to stay comfortable. I want to stay in control. And if that's you, I get it. I've been there until I wasn't there anymore, because I was so desperate for change. And that's when I knew I was ready. And you will too when you're ready. And some of you are already on that path. Some of you have said, I'm done. I'm not living this way anymore. And you made the choice to, for example, come into the Set Free Academy and do the deep work that you get to do to actually have the life you want, right? To have the freedom you want. So these habits, these old habits, old subconscious beliefs, they're really hard to break because you might not know how to change it. And old habits just die hard. So it takes some time, which is why the Set Free Academy it's a 12-month in total program. And we love walking through that with you, because we get to walk through every season and support you deeply while those old habits die. And another issue for most of us women who like to control is how to let go and stop controlling when there's so much that needs to be done. Like, we can't just sit back and go, oh, no big deal, just let everything take care of itself, right? And people rely on you. You can't just say, nope, not going to do it. And we know that's unrealistic, right? If you're thinking that way, it's absolutely correct. You are not going to be able to just let go and expect it's all going to work the way that it has been. And letting go of control is something that gets to be looked at a little differently. It's not about your action on the outside. It's not about doing nothing. It's not even about doing anything. Surrendering control is really about something very, very specific. Does anyone know what it is? Before I actually tell you, I want to see if you can put it in the comments. What do you think it is to surrender control? What do you need to do? So, in order to surrender control, we get to let our ego die. And our ego, it doesn't die in the sense of what we think of death, but we can shift the amount of authority we let our ego have over our life. Okay, so we're going to let our ego die. Our ego, your ego, is based in the flesh, right? Ego and flesh are synonymous. It's not your true identity. It's who you think you are, right? So one of the ladies just said about how, she thinks that if I keep doing the thing and I keep getting what I want to be, I have this like limit I want to reach, and when I'm there, I'll feel successful. Well, this is that false identity that we think if we get here, we're going to feel better. And, the identity that we think we are when we're in the ego is based on our level of performance, our career, right? The job we have, our identity is built up in that. How much we know, our knowledge, our understanding, the way we look, and our social circle, and all of our successes and accomplishments. And then I would add into that too, how much money we have in the bank, right? Which we often look to for our provision and protection. I mean, all of us are guilty of that, I'm sure. So here's the thing, when we let our ego die, we lose the things that we used to convince ourselves that we were enough. And I'm going to say that again, because I want that to hit home for you. When we let our ego die, we lose the things, we let go of the things that we used to convince ourselves that we were enough. And that can be really hard, because if we have built up this idea that we're enough based on this, and this criteria, and we just let that go, then who are we? What are we left with? And that's the scary part. But when we do that, we listen to a different voice. We listen to God's voice, right? We focus on our identity in Him, not based on what we do. And we see our worth in what He did for us already, the finished work on the cross, instead of our performance and what we do, right? On our trying, striving, doing, working. We focus on God's Spirit and we let go of that which is based in the flesh. And being led by the Spirit allows us to bear the fruit of the Spirit, which is what we want. When we're tied into the vine, we bear good fruit. So in order to do all that, in order to have that level of surrender and let the ego die, we must let go of our desire to perform, strive, and work our way to being good enough, because it's never going to happen. Because guess what? You're already good enough. So if you keep working, it's like the dangling carrot in front of you that you're just never going to reach. Yet you already have a carrot in your pocket. So why chase that carrot? Right? So we're letting go of the ego's lies for something so much better, which is Christ, right? His finished work, who we are in Him, our identity and worth in Him. So how do we let go of ego, right? Well, the first thing is we need to recognize what's going on. So awareness is huge. It's very hard to do something about a problem when you don't even know what the problem is. And when your problem is buried in your subconscious, or it's based in this ego persona, you actually have a bit of a block, right? So recognizing and being aware of what's going on inside of you is going to serve you really well. So if you have a pen and a piece of paper, I'm going to encourage you to take some notes because I think this is going to be really valuable for you. So tell me in the comments too, what do you think of this so far? Does this resonate with you? Are you feeling what I'm saying? Is it making sense? And I'm curious too, as I'm going through these examples, if you've ever seen these things show up in your life, and I'd love for you to put that in the comments. So the first one, the first way to recognize the ego is the ego thinks that knowing and absorbing in the heart are the same thing. So when I was always striving and doing and trying and faking it, I crumbled eventually. It was the end of me. I was done with the performing. I just wanted to be authentic. And I was so scared because I didn't want people to know me, because I thought if they knew me, they'd reject me and then it would be way worse. And this was all very subconscious. But I was faced with the question when all of this came crashing down, who am I? And when I asked myself that question, and I continue to ask myself that question every day, but this was when I first started doing my healing many years ago, I was faced with this, I don't know. I don't know who I am. Apart from what I do, isn't that who I am? But it wasn't. I thought that knowing things and doing all of these things was actually getting me what I wanted. But to know God, I had to break through the facade. I had to bring people into my life to help guide me and really understand my blind spots, right? Because I could go to church and I could know something, but absorbing it was not the same. And the ego wants to know things. The ego's like, if I have the knowledge and the understanding, then everything's going to work out. And the ego also thinks if I have the knowledge and understanding, I'm going to be right about things. And we'll talk about that in a second. But we understand more how we're showing up when we have someone in our life who holds up a mirror to us. So I had people who held up a mirror to me. And this allowed me to let go of control and focus on God's Spirit and let Him in. And it helped me rid myself of the shame, the guilt, and the desire to hide, because I realized that if I wanted God to be in my heart, I had to let go of this ego belief that if I knew everything, it was going to work out. I had to let it go deeper. But while I was living in my ego, I wasn't allowing it to go deeper. So if you want to love others, we hear about love your neighbor as yourself. If you want to love others well, you need to know yourself. You need to know yourself at a heart level. You need to wade through all the junk. You need to absorb God's love, right? All of this needs to be brought from here into your heart. right? You need to get out of your ego. And I honestly, I think every day in some way I am dying to my ego. I'm letting my ego die. I'm like, okay, God, come in with your spirit and overpower this part of my ego that's showing up right now. And that was when the other week when I postponed my live, that's what was going on for me is I wanted to be live. I wanted to do the thing I said I was going to do, but God was calling me to rest, and I had to let all of that ego stuff going on inside me die in order to say, I'm going to come into agreement with you, God. And then it really absorbed into me instead of just trying to do it on the outside. The next one, number 2, is your ego needs to feel special. So your ego or your flesh, your false self, needs to feel separate and special. Have you ever wanted to feel special? Because I know I spent most of my life desperate to feel special, and it almost did me in because I was trying to be special to the wrong people, and it got me into so much trouble. But the ego needs the spotlight, right? It's always looking over its shoulder because it's like, oh, is this attention? Is it going to still be here? Do these people love me? Am I enough? Right? And it's usually not openly, but privately, the ego resents any person who threatens its kind of reputation or its specialness, right? So if you're the type of woman like me, like I found my specialness in so many things. People, my career, how I looked, how I presented myself, trying to be really positive around people so they would like me. And this really took the place of God in my life. When I began doing the deep work that I do with my Set Free Academy clients, it really did feel like a death at first. But it was God allowing the parts of me that didn't serve him to be chipped away. Right? I didn't need them, but I thought I did. So it was really painful. So when I finally let myself be me, it changed everything. And your true self without the ego is not attached to accomplishments or titles. So you stop thinking about who other people want you to be, and you don't climb higher to be better than anyone or feel special. It's actually very liberating when you stop giving power away to people. And then the only one who has power over you is God and you. But a lot of times we hand our power away to people and say, if they like us, if they think I'm special, if they don't reject me, then I'm enough, right? So I don't know if any of you ever do that, but I certainly have in my life. And now I'm so aware of it that if it ever kind of happens, I can coach myself through it and move past it and realize it's ego. That's what I want for you. So next one, the ego rarely lives in the present moment. So the ego has a very unhealthy attachment to the past and the future because it focuses on the past, like the mistakes or even the good times, all of it. And it focuses on the future, but often in a fear sense, right? It's not like, oh, the future's so exciting. It's like, I'm terrified. Is there going to be money in the bank? Am I going to be provided for? Am I going to be protected? Are my kids going to be okay, right? And we fear a lot about the future. But when you're in the present moment, you're in the flow. You aren't worried, you aren't stressed, you aren't discouraged. You're just here in this moment with no fear and worry. But when we get caught up in our head, that's not God. That's, when we're, stressed, worry, is this going to work out okay? What are people going to think of me? That's not God. That's not what God wants for you. And the past, present, and future, they matter. Absolutely, right? It's great to have knowledge about the past, but be careful not to live there. And the future can be exciting, but don't live in fear of it. So we know that's not God's best for us. And that's really your ego, right? Experiencing God's spirit is tied to how fully we live in each moment in the present. So if you notice that you have a lot of fear of the future, or you're constantly living in the past about what happened to you or what people said to you, there's a certain element of going to the past in a healing sense. So in the Set Free Academy, we go back to some of the trauma in our life in order to just remedy it in the present, right? We bring it into the present. We bring those parts of us into the present moment and let them have a voice that they didn't have when they were younger, or let them process through whatever it is that they went through, the trauma, right? And renew their mind. And that's all part of us, right? These parts of us, it's like, oh, I really want to eat healthy, but a part of me really wants that ice cream, right? And we talk about the parts of us. So it's like this part of us that is still struggling, thinking that we're not enough, even though our head knows we are. Deep down, there's a part that goes, nope, you're not enough. Nope, you can't trust people. Nope, better be scared. Future might not be good. You better be worried about it. And that's what we work on, but we bring it into the present moment. And the work we do is very deep in the present moment, because that's where you can really access those parts. But we don't want to live there. We don't want to live in the past, right? Bringing something into the present that needs to be healed is very different from going into the past and just getting stuck there, right? So that's the difference. And so we rarely live in the present when we're living in our ego. So just notice if you're worried about the future or thinking and ruminating about the past, that's an ego thing. And there's no judgment here, right? This is just awareness. So you get to take this and coach yourself around it and work through it, right? The other thing is the ego must be right. And it's always important to be open to growth and feedback and checking the other side. My husband had a history teacher in high school, and he said, and I love this quote, when you think you know everything about something, check the other side. And I think this is really important because we have a more well-rounded view, but people who are based in their ego, you probably know someone like this. Maybe you've been like this, because I have, where you just want to be right about everything. And God's nature and interaction with this creation that he made, right? It can't be explained away in a few sentences. Like God is so vast and so great, and we're never going to fully understand him, right? He uses everything in the larger plan, and we're never going to fully understand that. So how can we be right about things? The only thing we can actually stand on is the truth of his word. But as far as his sovereign will and what he is doing in our life, right? We want to be right about things, but usually our rightness goes to the negative. It goes to the negative, right? And it's not a openness to God. It's not I wonder what God's going to do today. I wonder what his spirit's going to manifest in my life today. It's like holding on really tightly to what we want, and I hope God shows up for me the way I want, instead of just being open to what is God going to do today, right? And not having to be right about how he manifests in our life, whether he's good or not based on that. And the truth is, we might question things in life. Like we don't understand why things happen in life. And we don't know why there's so much suffering in the world. And I think just not knowing everything, not understanding, we can know to a certain degree, but just thinking about the tree of knowledge and the tree of life. God doesn't want us to live in the tree of knowledge and understand everything and be like God, as we saw with Adam and Eve. He wants us to live in the tree of life, which is his spirit. And, we know that God wins. Death does not have the final word. So now it's really about how do we allow God's spirit to manifest in our life and just be open to what he's going to do. So the next one is the ego easily takes offense. So this is a question to ask yourself when I talk about self-coaching. Here you go. Here's one to keep in your pocket. How easily am I offended? So ask yourself, when the ego's in charge, almost any disagreement or opposing viewpoint feels like a personal attack. And I used to live in my ego all the time this way. I always felt attacked. I always felt like, somebody was offending me. I took offense to everything. It was all about me. And this stems from our ego's desire to be right, special, and separate. And just notice Jesus. Was he ever offended? No, because the Spirit of God is unoffendable. So the next one is the ego hates change. The ego loves control and comfort. Jesus's first sermon was repent, right? Which literally means change your mind. Your ego doesn't want you to grow or change, but Jesus wants us to change from the inside out. And we can spend so much time trying to change people around us instead of actually looking inward and changing ourselves. But a victory mindset is based on God's will and his healing in you, his desire for you to change and be made more into his image every day. That is a victory mindset. So how can you be open to God's healing, God being made more into his image, right? And how he wants to change you from the inside out and transform you. Instead of us holding on so tightly to comfort, God wants us to step into the uncomfortable, because that's where the transformation happens. So the next one is the ego focuses on sins of the flesh, not of the heart. So the ego focuses on all the external sins that you can tangibly measure, like sexual sins, how you present yourself in life, church attendance, sexual orientation, all that stuff. And that becomes the measure of a true Christian. But Jesus knows external sins are just manifestations of what's going on in your heart. And we won't get very far if we don't address the pain underneath what's causing the outward sin. So it's very important to not just focus on outward sins and judgment of others, because that's usually what happens with the ego, is we get into this place of judgment. Oh, look at them, they sinned. Or we look at ourselves and go, oh, look what I just did. But it's not about what you do, it's who you be. Who are you in your heart? God looks at the heart, right? So the spirit, God, is focused on your heart. So where's your heart at? The next one is your ego wants to prove itself. So it's about wanting to be better than others and kind of playing that comparison game, comparing yourself to others and sometimes making them wrong. And sometimes this shows up as you thinking you're better than someone else. And, you see this in some people who claim to be leaders or prophets who think they have the answer to everything because God gave it to them. And they want to prove that that's their answer. And they're not open to any other way. And this can also be people who have political affiliation and they just spend time arguing that their point is right. You probably see this on Facebook sometimes. People who have a certain social status and people elevate themselves because of certain beliefs about themselves and that they're good, they're better, right? And this is not what God wants. We are not above anyone else. But I used to think I was better than others because it made me feel good. I actually, like, there was this part of me inside that knew I wasn't, but I was so committed to being better than other people at everything. And it was so difficult because I was doing it because I felt unworthy inside, right? It's an ego. It's like, if you ever see, it, I'm sure, like those people with a bravado that is just ego seeping out of them. And you think, oh, I can just see their insecurity inside and their ego that's showing up on the outside to make them feel better. I was like that. Oh my gosh. Before I was able to really be authentic with who I am now, I was like that 100%. And any thinking that made me better than the other person for any reason was not from God. And the creator is love. He doesn't need to compete. And we don't need to compete either. The only person we're really in competition with is ourselves. Then the last one is the ego wants what it wants now and does not like to be uncomfortable. So the ego doesn't want to do what's hard. It doesn't want to do what requires too much effort or makes you uncomfortable. These situations are really unavoidable in life, aren't they? So you can choose to lean in or you can choose to resist. And I didn't like discomfort at all. I loved the status quo. I wanted things to be in control, everything, all my ducks in a row. But one day, many years ago, I asked specifically for challenges in my life because I was so desperate to grow, to be better, to just stop with all of the behaviors, all of the ways about me. I just desperately wanted change. And I was ready to invest my time, my energy, my finances into getting that change because it was so worth it. And, if you're at the end of your rope and you want something better for your life, you want his love, his joy, his peace to penetrate deep inside you, and you want to rid yourself of your ego and really focus on God, then book a call with me or someone from my team. And on this call, we really get to know exactly why you haven't been experiencing God's abundant joy and peace in your life. And we uncover some of your subconscious blocks that have kept you from letting go and just becoming more like Him. We walk through a step-by-step plan to go from feeling down, frustrated, and anxious to living in His Spirit more and more every day. And this call is not for everyone. This is for women who are ready. And I mean, really ready. I get a lot of women who book calls with me and they're like, I'm ready, I'm ready. They fill out the application form. I'm ready to invest whatever it takes. I'm ready to put my time and energy in. I want these results yesterday. I'm ready. And I get on a call with them and they're like, oh, it's so much money. It's so funny because yes, it's not cheap. It's not a cheap program. It's a deep dive intensive program that is like going into rehab. Like if you were to check yourself into a rehab center, you're paying thousands of dollars for probably like 8 to 12 weeks, right? That is not what this is. But the women come in and then they get scared about the money. And not all of them, a lot of them you'll see testimonials from women who come in and they're like, the money's scary, but I'm doing it anyway because it's worth it. Don't book a call if spending money to be better is scaring you that much, because we're not going to be able to move forward, right? This is a opportunity for those who are ready to invest their time, their energy, and their finances in themselves, not just because you want to be who God created you to be and really heal those old wounds and that negative thinking, renew your mind, heal from the trauma of your past, but the ripple effect it has on the people around you and how it just makes your family so much better. It makes your kids better. It makes everyone around you better. So if that's worth it to you, there is an opportunity for you here. If this is what you've been looking for, then book a call and we can talk about it. But just know that you're not going to be paying a small amount of money for it. It's going to be 4 figures. And I'm going to be really real about that. And it's worth every penny and so much more. I've had women tell me they would have paid $1 million within 3 or 4 months of being in the program because that's how much they got out of it. And I can send you lots of testimonials of the women who've been in it. They've just gotten so much out of it. So I'm providing this as a service for you if you know that this is what you want. And I'm not ashamed to say that you're going to get to invest finances in yourself. So I used to be scared of that. I used to be scared to charge money for this service. And I was like, I just want to give it away for free to everybody because that's what the Christian thing is to do. But then I realized people actually, there's like transformation in the transaction where your heart, where your money is, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So if this is worth it, the women who get the most out of the program are the ones that invest their time, energy, and finances. And that's just the way it is. So if that's something that you think would serve you, book a call. If not, keep watching my lives. I've got lots of free resources on my website you can take in as well. I give so much away for free because I know you're kind of either in the free bracket or you're in the I'm ready for more bracket. And you get to decide. There's lots of options for you either way. So I am thanking you so much for being here. You know, I just believe with every fiber of my being that to God be the glory. I pray that you got something out of this today, that you feel refreshed, that you feel like you've got something now you can go away with and implement in your life. And send me a message if this resonated with you and you want to talk more or book a call. So I am sending you so much love. Thanks for being here with me today. Thank you for watching. If you connected with this content and it helped you in some way, please like, subscribe, and share this video. Also, check the description below for special gifts just for you. See you in the next video.